Dr. Amanda Clark pressed her back against the cold metal wall of the medical bunker. Outside, she could hear the sound of alien weapons firing. The red cross painted on the bunker's walls should have protected them. It should have meant safety. But the Zephyrian soldiers did not care about the rules of war. Amanda had been a field doctor for 10 years. She had seen battles on 6 different planets. She knew the sounds of war by heart. But this was different. This time, the enemy was shooting directly at the medical station. They were hunting doctors and nurses like they were soldiers. Her hands shook as she tried to bandage the wounded soldier lying on the table. The young man was barely 20 years old. His name was Bobby Martinez, and he had been shot while trying to reach the medical bunker for help. Now the bunker itself was under attack. Dr. Clark called Nurse Jenny Walsh from across the room. "We have 3 more wounded coming in, but I don't think they're going to make it. The aliens are shooting anyone who tries to reach us." Amanda closed her eyes for a moment. In all her years as a doctor, she had never faced anything like this. The Geneva Convention was supposed to protect medical workers. It was one of the oldest rules of war. Even the worst human armies had respected it. But these aliens seemed to think it was just a suggestion. The bunker shook as another blast hit. The outside wall. Through the small window, Amanda could see Zephyrian soldiers moving closer. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Each one carried weapons that could cut through steel, and they were all aimed at the medical station. "This is Dr. Amanda Clark at Medical Station 7. She spoke into her radio. "We are under direct attack. Repeat, medical personnel are being targeted. This is a war crime. We need immediate help." The radio crackled with static, and a voice came through. It was Commander Jake Morrison from the patrol ship USS Retribution. "Doctor, did you say you're being targeted?" "As in, they're shooting at medical personnel?" "Yes, Commander. They're not just ignoring our protected status. They're hunting us. They've killed Dr. Peterson and 3 nurses already. They're executing wounded soldiers who can't fight back." There was silence on the radio for a long moment. Amanda could almost feel the shock on the other end. Finally, Commander Morrison spoke again. His voice was tight with anger. "Doctor, we're coming to get you. Hold on." But Amanda knew it might be too late. Through the window, she watched as Zephyrian soldiers dragged wounded human soldiers out of their hiding spots. The aliens lined them up against a wall. Amanda turned away before the executions began, but she could not block out the sounds. "Nurse." Walsh was crying as she worked on another patient. "They're monsters," she whispered. "How can they do this? Don't they have doctors of their own? Don't they understand what medical workers do?" Amanda had wondered the same thing. She had studied alien cultures as part of her medical training. Most species had some concept of healing and helpers. Most understood that doctors and nurses were not soldiers. But the Zephyrians seemed to see no difference. To them, all humans were enemies, even those trying to save lives. The bunker's main door exploded inward. Zephyrian soldiers poured through the opening. Their weapons were raised and ready to fire. Amanda stepped forward, her hands raised to show she was not armed. "We are medical personnel," she said clearly. "We are protected under the laws of war. We treat wounded from both sides. We are not your enemy." The lead Zephyrian soldier tilted his head like he was listening to something. Then he raised his weapon and pointed it directly at Amanda's chest. She could see in his 4 eyes that he understood exactly what she was saying. He just did not care. "Human healers make humans stronger," the alien said in broken English. "We remove healers. Humans become weak. Humans die easier." Amanda felt her blood turn cold. This was not just a military tactic. This was a deliberate strategy to destroy humanity's ability to care for their wounded. The Zephyrians had decided that doctors and nurses were legitimate targets because they helped keep human soldiers alive. Before the alien could fire, an explosion rocked the bunker from outside. The Zephyrian soldiers turned toward the sound. Through the broken door, Amanda could see human soldiers fighting their way toward the medical station. Commander Morrison had kept his promise. The battle was short but fierce. The human rescue team fought with a desperate anger that Amanda had never seen before. When they learned that the aliens were targeting medical workers, something had changed in them. They fought like they were protecting something sacred. When the shooting stopped, Commander Morrison himself entered the bunker. He was a young man, maybe 30 years old, with short brown hair and determined blue eyes. His uniform was torn and bloody, but he moved quickly to check on the medical staff. "Dr. Clark, we need to get you out of here," he said. "This whole sector is compromised. The aliens have hit medical stations on 4 different planets at the same time. This wasn't random. This was planned." Amanda looked around at what remained of her medical station. Equipment was destroyed. Supplies were scattered. 3 of her staff were dead. And somewhere in the ruins were the bodies of wounded soldiers who had died because they could not reach help. "Commander," she said quietly, "they're not just breaking the rules of war. They're declaring that the rules don't exist. If they can target medical workers, then there are no limits to what they'll do." Commander Morrison nodded grimly. "Doctor, I think you're right, and I think they have no idea what they've just started." As they evacuated the medical station, Amanda could not shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. The Zephyrians had crossed a line that humans held sacred. They had attacked the healers, the helpers, the ones who saved lives instead of taking them. In her experience, humans could forgive many things. They could negotiate, compromise, and find peaceful solutions to most conflicts. But there were some lines that should never be crossed. And the aliens had just crossed the biggest one of all. The rescue ship lifted off into the dark sky, carrying the survivors to safety. But Amanda knew this was just the beginning. The Zephyrians had made a choice that would change everything. They had shown that they had no honor, no respect for the basic rules that kept war from becoming simple murder. And humans, Amanda suspected, were about to show them what happened when the rules no longer applied. Admiral Peter Hayes stood in the emergency meeting room on Luna Station. The room was filled with the most important military leaders in human space. Their faces were grim as they watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The holographic display showed 17 red dots. Each dot was a medical facility that had been destroyed by Zephyrian forces. 43 doctors and nurses were dead. Hundreds of wounded soldiers had been left to die without treatment. The attacks had all happened at the same time across 4 different star systems. "They planned this," said General Frank Turner, head of Special Operations. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles. "This wasn't a mistake or an accident. They specifically targeted our medical people." Senator Carol Price from Mars spoke up. She was one of the few civilians in the room, but her voice carried authority. "Do they understand what they've done? Do they know what it means to attack doctors and nurses?" Admiral Hayes looked at the faces around the table. These were people who had fought in wars, made hard decisions, and seen terrible things. But even they looked shocked by what the aliens had done. There were rules in war, even the worst wars. Some things were supposed to be protected. "I don't think they understand," Hayes said slowly. "I think they see our medical corps as a military target. They don't know that we consider attacking doctors to be the worst possible war crime." Dr. Helen Scott appeared on the main screen via secure video link. She was calling from a secret facility on Titan, one of Saturn's moons. Her white hair was pulled back severely, and her green eyes were cold with anger. She had been one of the designers of humanity's most classified military project. "Admiral," Dr. Scott said, "I've been watching the reports. I think it's time we considered reactivating Project Reaper." The room went silent. Most of the people at the table had heard whispers about Project Reaper, but few knew the details. It was one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets, a program so extreme that it had been shut down after the colonial wars ended. General Turner cleared his throat. "Helen, that program was discontinued for good reasons. We decided it was too dangerous, too extreme for civilized warfare." "Civilized warfare," Dr. Scott repeated with a bitter laugh. "Frank, they're executing doctors. They're shooting nurses. They're leaving wounded soldiers to die in agony. Does that sound civilized to you?" Colonel Steve Baker, one of the original Reaper program trainers, stood up from his seat. His left arm was artificial, a high-tech replacement for the one he had lost during the program's early days. The prosthetic was so advanced, it looked almost real, but everyone in the room knew the story behind it. "The Reapers were created for exactly this situation," Baker said. His voice was quiet but firm. "When the enemy proves they have no honor. When conventional military response isn't enough. When someone needs to pay the price for crossing certain lines." Admiral Hayes had read the classified files on Project Reaper. He knew what the program had created. Enhanced soldiers who were more than human, trained to operate in the gray area between life and death. They were humanity's answer to enemies who refused to follow any rules at all. The psychological profiles of the Reaper operatives, Hayes said carefully, suggested they might have difficulty returning to normal military service. "That's why we put them in cold sleep instead of just retiring them." Dr. Scott nodded. "They volunteered for the modifications, knowing they might never be able to live normal lives again. They sacrificed their humanity to protect ours. And now we need them." The modifications were extensive. Enhanced reflexes, improved strength, advanced healing, neural implants that allowed them to process information faster than any normal human. But the psychological changes were even more dramatic. The Reapers had been trained to think differently, to see the world in terms of absolute justice rather than mercy or forgiveness. "How many are still viable?" asked General Turner. 47 operatives in cold storage on the Karen facility," Colonel Baker replied. "All of them volunteered for indefinite suspension until they were needed again. They knew this day might come." Senator Price looked uncomfortable. "Are we really talking about waking up super soldiers to commit what amounts to assassination? Is that who we want to be?" Admiral Hayes looked at the display again. 17 medical facilities destroyed, 43 healers murdered, hundreds of wounded left to die. The Zephyrians had made their choice. They had decided that humanity's doctors and nurses were legitimate military targets. "Senator," Hayes said quietly, "they attacked our healers. They crossed the one line that every civilized species respects. If we respond with conventional military force, more of our medical people will die. The Reapers can end this quickly and send a message that will prevent future attacks." The vote was close. Some members of the council were uncomfortable with reactivating such an extreme program. But the images of destroyed medical stations and murdered doctors were too fresh in everyone's minds. The Zephyrians had declared that the rules of war no longer applied. Humanity would respond in kind. Motion carried. Admiral Hayes announced, "Project Reaper is reactivated. Authorization code Pale Horse. May God forgive us for what we're about to unleash." The secure communication to the Karen facility went out immediately. Deep under the surface of Pluto's distant moon, automated systems began warming the cryogenic chambers. 47 enhanced humans would soon wake up for the first time in 15 years. Dr. Scott's face on the screen showed no emotion as she received the activation codes. Admiral, the operatives will be ready for deployment in 72 hours. Do you have specific targets in mind? General Turner consulted his intelligence reports. We've identified the Zephyrian military commanders responsible for ordering the attacks on medical facilities. We also have the locations of their main fleet positions and command centers. The Reapers will need transport, Colonel Baker added. The Pale Horse is still in storage at the facility. It's designed to be undetectable, even by our own sensors. Admiral Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. The Pale Horse was a ship designed for one purpose, carrying death itself to humanity's enemies. It could slip through space like a ghost, delivering its deadly cargo without warning. What about rules of engagement? Asked Senator Price. Do we give them any limits? Dr. Scott's smile was cold as winter. Senator, the Reapers don't operate under normal rules of engagement. They exist to provide absolute justice when the normal rules have failed. The Zephyrians wanted to see what happens when you ignore the laws of war. They're about to find out. The meeting ended with a sense of inevitability. The decision had been made. The Reapers would wake up, and the Zephyrian Empire would learn why humanity had created them in the first place. Some weapons were too terrible to use in normal warfare. But when the enemy proved they had no honor, terrible weapons became necessary. As the council members filed out of the room, Admiral Hayes remained behind, staring at the display showing the destroyed medical facilities. In 72 hours, the galaxy would see a side of humanity that had been hidden for 15 years. The Zephyrians had crossed a line, and now they would face the consequences. The Reapers were coming, and mercy was no longer an option. The first thing Sergeant Major Alex Turner noticed when he woke up was that he could hear everything. The hum of the life support systems, the footsteps of technicians 3 rooms away, even the heartbeats of the people monitoring his revival. His enhanced hearing was working perfectly after 15 years in cold sleep. The cryogenic chamber opened with a soft hiss, and Alex sat up smoothly. His body felt strong and ready, despite the long sleep. The genetic modifications and cybernetic enhancements had kept him in perfect condition. He was no longer entirely human, but he was exactly what humanity needed. Around him, 46 other chambers were opening. The Reapers were awakening. Each one had volunteered for the program, knowing they might never live a normal life again. They had given up their humanity to protect it. Now they were needed once more. The facility's artificial intelligence, code-named Angel, spoke in a calm female voice that filled the chamber. Welcome back, Reapers. You have been in suspension for 15 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Your awakening has been authorized under Protocol Pale Horse. Mission parameters are being downloaded to your neural implants now. Alex felt the familiar sensation of information flowing directly into his brain. Mission details, target profiles, intelligence reports, and tactical data all appeared in his mind like memories. The Zephyrian Empire had attacked human medical facilities. They had murdered doctors and nurses. They had crossed the line that separated war from simple barbarism. Captain Maria Lopez was the first to stand. She was a small woman with dark hair and cold brown eyes, but Alex knew she could move faster than any normal human and hit harder than a machine. Her specialty was close combat and infiltration. She rolled her shoulders and checked her reflexes with quick, precise movements. 43 medical personnel dead, she said, her voice flat with controlled anger, including children in the pediatric ward on Kepler Station. They killed the doctors, then they killed the sick children. Master. Sergeant Tony Williams was checking his weapons. He was the team's heavy weapons specialist, enhanced with cybernetic arms that could carry equipment no normal human could lift. His dark skin showed the scars from the surgical procedures that had made him more than human. Intel says the Zephyrians. Think we're soft, Tony said. They think our rules make us weak. They're about to learn different. The transport ship Pale Horse was waiting in the facility's hidden launch bay. Lieutenant Commander Sam Rodriguez was already running pre-flight checks. He had been the program's pilot for 8 years before they were all put into cold sleep. His neural implants were connected directly to the ship's systems, making him and the vessel into one entity. "Ship's ready," Sam reported. "Stealth systems are at full capacity. We'll be invisible to everything short of point-blank visual contact." The Pale Horse looked like death itself. Its hull was matte black and covered with sensors that could detect enemies from vast distances. The ship's weapons were not designed for fair fights. They were designed to kill quickly and silently. It was a vessel built for one purpose: delivering the Reapers to their targets. Corporal Danny Kim was the team's intelligence specialist. His enhanced brain could process vast amounts of information and spot patterns that normal humans would miss. He was already analyzing Zephyrian communication intercepts, looking for weaknesses in their command structure. "They're proud of what they did," Danny reported. "The Zephyrian military is bragging about their new tactic of targeting medical facilities. They think they've found a way to demoralize human forces." Alex put on his armor, feeling it sync with his nervous system. The suit was not just protection. It was an extension of his body. It enhanced his already superhuman abilities and gave him access to weapons that could cut through tank armor. The armor was black as space itself, with no markings or identification. "Mission objectives," Alex said to the assembled team. "We eliminate the Zephyrian commanders responsible for ordering attacks on medical facilities. We destroy their ability to threaten human medical personnel. And we send a message that will prevent any other species from making the same mistake." The Reapers moved through their equipment checks with mechanical precision. Each one was a specialist in different forms of warfare. Some were infiltrators who could slip through any security. Others were combat specialists who could fight entire armies. All of them were enhanced beyond normal human limits. Technical Sergeant Amy Chun was the team's sabotage expert. Her small size and quiet manner hid the fact that she could destroy entire installations with carefully placed explosives. She was also enhanced with cybernetic fingers that could manipulate any electronic system. "Primary target is the command ship Sovereign's Wrath," she said, studying the intelligence reports. "General Vex Tar is the alien who gave the order to attack medical facilities. He's aboard that ship, along with his entire command staff. Sergeant Kevin Brown was the team's psychological warfare specialist. His job was to ensure that enemies understood exactly why they were dying. He had been enhanced with perfect memory and the ability to speak any language after hearing it once. The Zephyrians need to understand that this is justice, not just revenge," Kevin said. "They attacked healers, so they will die without hope of medical treatment. They targeted the defenseless, so they will die defenseless." The Pale Horse launched from the hidden facility without any detectable signature. Its stealth systems made it invisible to sensors, and its speed allowed it to cross interstellar distances faster than any normal ship. The Reapers sat in the passenger compartment, running final checks on their equipment. Alex looked at his team and felt a familiar sense of purpose. They were no longer fully human, but they were humanity's children. They had been created to do what normal humans could not or would not do. They were the price of civilization, the dark shadow cast by the light of mercy and compassion. "Remember," he told his team, "we are not soldiers anymore. We are justice itself. The Zephyrians chose to abandon the rules of war. We will show them what war without rules looks like." The ship's sensors detected the Zephyrian fleet ahead. Dozens of warships, including the massive command vessel where General Vex Tar was planning his next assault on human medical facilities. The aliens had no idea what was coming for them. They had never faced anything like the Reapers. Approaching target zone, Sam reported from the pilot's seat. "All stealth systems operational. We are invisible to their sensors." Alex felt the familiar coldness settle over his mind. It was the psychological conditioning that allowed him to do what normal humans could not. The ability to kill without mercy, to bring absolute justice to those who had abandoned honor. He was no longer Alex Turner, the man who had volunteered for the program. He was something more and something less than human. The Reapers were awake, and they were coming for the Zephyrians who had dared to attack humanity's healers. The aliens had crossed a line that should never be crossed. Now they would pay the price. In the depths of space, the pale horse moved like a ghost toward its targets. Inside, 47 enhanced humans prepared to show the galaxy what happened when someone targeted the defenseless. The Zephyrians had wanted to see humanity's response to attacks on medical personnel. They were about to get their answer. General Vexstar was reviewing reports from the successful medical facility attacks when his communications officer reported a problem. 3 of their forward bases had gone silent within the past 12 hours. No distress signals, no emergency transmissions. They had simply stopped responding to all communications. The Zephyrian general was not worried at first. Communication equipment failed sometimes, especially in the outer systems where they were expanding their territory. But when the 4th base went silent, he began to pay attention. "Send a patrol ship to investigate Base 17, he ordered. "I want to know why they're not responding." A patrol ship reached Base 17 6 hours later. What they found made no sense. The base was still there, all the buildings intact, all the equipment working. But there were no living Zephyrians anywhere. The entire garrison of 300 soldiers had simply vanished. "General," the patrol ship captain reported, "we found the garrison. They're all dead, sir. Every single one of them. But there are no signs of battle damage to the base itself." General Vexstar felt a chill run through his forearms. How did they die? Poison gas? Disease? No, sir. They were killed by weapons fire, but very precisely. Professional work. And General, there's something else. They left a message written in our language on the command center wall. What does it say? The patrol ship captain's voice was shaky. It says, "You targeted healers. Now you die without medical care." Before General Vexstar could respond, another report came in. Base 23 had also gone silent. Then Base 31. A pattern was always the same. No battle damage to the installations, but every Zephyrian soldier dead. And always the same message about targeting healers. Technical. Sergeant Amy Chun moved through the corridors of the Zephyrian command ship Sovereign's Wrath like a shadow. Her enhanced senses allowed her to avoid every patrol, every security camera, every sensor. The ship's crew had no idea that death was walking among them. A pale horse had delivered the Reapers directly to the Zephyrian fleet using stealth technology that made them invisible to alien sensors. Now 47 enhanced humans were spread across a dozen enemy ships. Bringing justice to those who had attacked medical personnel. Amy reached the ship's medical bay and began placing her charges. The explosives were small, but precisely designed. They would destroy the medical equipment and facilities, leaving the ship unable to treat wounded. It was perfect justice. The Zephyrians would face the same helplessness they had inflicted on human medical stations. 3 decks above, Master Sergeant Tony Williams was making his way toward the ship's armory. His cybernetic arms allowed him to carry weapons that would normally require a full team to operate. He moved with inhuman speed and precision, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to avoid detection. The Zephyrian soldiers he encountered never had a chance to raise an alarm. Tony's weapons were silent and deadly. Each shot was perfectly placed, killing instantly. The aliens died without understanding what had happened to them. Staff Sergeant Kevin Brown found the ship's communications center and began his psychological warfare operation. He spoke perfect Zephyrian, having absorbed the language from captured transmissions. His enhanced memory allowed him to recall every detail of the aliens' crimes against medical personnel. "Attention crew of the Sovereign's Wrath," he broadcast on all internal channels. "You are being executed for war crimes against medical personnel. Your deaths are justice for the doctors and nurses you murdered. You will receive no medical treatment. You will die as helplessly as your victims." The broadcast caused panic throughout the ship. Zephyrian soldiers began searching frantically for the intruders, but the Reapers were too fast, too skilled, and too well trained. They had been created specifically for this kind of mission. Captain Maria Lopez was hunting General Vextar himself. She had studied the ship's layout and knew exactly where the Zephyrian commander would be. Her enhanced speed allowed her to move through the ship faster than any normal human could follow. She found the general in his private quarters, surrounded by his bodyguards. The four-armed alien was studying tactical displays, planning his next attack on human medical facilities. He had no idea that justice had already found him. Maria entered the room through the ventilation system, dropping down behind the bodyguards before they could react. Her enhanced reflexes allowed her to disable all 6 guards in less than 3 seconds. They died so quickly they never had time to warn their general. General Vextar turned around to find a small human woman standing in his quarters. She was wearing black armor that seemed to absorb light, and her brown eyes were as cold as space itself. In her hands was a weapon that could cut through the strongest alien armor. "Who are you?" the general demanded. "How did you get aboard my ship?" "I am Justice," Maria replied in perfect Zephyrian. "You ordered the execution of doctors and nurses. You targeted healers who were protected by the laws of war. Now you will pay the price." The general reached for his weapon, but Maria was faster than any creature he had ever seen. She moved within human speed, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to anticipate his every move. The fight was over before it began. "You wanted to see what happens when you attack medical personnel," Maria said. As the general lay dying, "This is your answer." Across the fleet, similar scenes were playing out on every Zephyrian ship. The Reapers moved through the alien vessels like death itself, eliminating command staff with surgical precision. Each death was swift but meaningful, a direct response to the crimes committed against human medical workers. Sergeant Major Alex Turner coordinated the operation from the bridge of the flagship. His neural implants allowed him to communicate with all the Reaper teams simultaneously, coordinating their movements with perfect timing. "Team 7, report status," he transmitted. "Command deck secured," came the reply from Corporal Danny Kim. "All senior officers eliminated. Ship's weapons are offline." "Team 3, status report." "Engineering section cleared," reported Technical. Sergeant Amy Chun. "Reactor will overload in 30 minutes. Medical bay destroyed. No survivors." One by one, the reports came in. The Zephyrian fleet was being systematically destroyed from within. The aliens had superior numbers and firepower, but they had never faced anything like the Reapers. The enhanced humans moved through their ships like ghosts, striking without warning and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The final ship to fall was the command vessel itself. Alex Turner made his way to the bridge where the surviving crew members were desperately trying to call for help. They had watched their entire fleet die around them, helpless to stop the invisible killers. "This is General Vextar's flagship," the communications officer was saying. "We are under attack by unknown forces. They're inside our ships. They're killing everyone. Request immediate assistance." Alex stepped onto the bridge, his armor making him look like death itself. The Zephyrian crew members turned to face him, their alien faces showing terror and confusion. They had never seen anything like him. Your general is dead, Alex announced. Your fleet is destroyed. Your bases are eliminated. This is the price for attacking medical personnel. The senior officer, a four-armed alien with ceremonial scars on his face, raised his weapon. You're just one human. We still outnumber you. Alex smiled coldly. You don't understand. I'm not human anymore. I'm what humans become when you cross certain lines. The fight on the bridge lasted less than a minute. When it was over, Alex stood, alone among the bodies of the Zephyrian command staff. The alien fleet that had attacked human medical facilities was no more. The pale horse collected the Reaper teams from the destroyed ships. Within 6 hours, the entire Zephyrian attack force had been eliminated. Not a single enhanced human had been lost, and their mission was complete. As they departed the battle zone, Alex looked back at the burning wreckage of the alien fleet. The Zephyrians had learned the hard way that some lines should never be crossed. They had attacked humanity's healers, and now they were dead. The message would spread throughout the galaxy. Attack human medical personnel and face the Reapers. It was a lesson written in blood and fire, one that no other species would soon forget. The emergency session of the Zephyrian High Council was unlike anything in their empire's history. Representatives from across their territory had gathered to discuss a threat they did not understand. In 3 weeks, 37 military installations had been destroyed. Thousands of soldiers were dead, and nobody knew who was responsible. Emperor Zakthul sat on his throne, his forearms trembling with barely controlled rage. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 12 star systems and defeated dozens of enemy species. They were proud warriors who had never known defeat. But now, something was hunting them with deadly precision. Report, the Emperor commanded. General. Mordok, the new military commander after General Vextara's death, stood to address the council. His voice shook as he delivered the impossible news. Your Majesty, we have lost contact with the entire Third Fleet. 17 ships, including the command vessel Sovereign's Wrath. They were investigating human medical facility attacks when they simply vanished. Vanished? 17 warships do not simply vanish. We found debris, Your Majesty. The ships were destroyed from within. There were no signs of external attack. Whatever killed our forces was already inside the ships when they died. The Emperor's advisor, a old Zephyrian named Veltar, spoke carefully. Your Majesty, we have received reports from across our territory. Our bases are being attacked by unknown forces. The attackers leave no survivors and take no prisoners. They kill everyone and disappear. What do these attackers want? Territory? Resources? Surrender terms? They leave messages, Your Majesty. Always the same message. They say we targeted healers, and now we must pay the price. The Emperor remembered the decision to attack human medical facilities. It had seemed like a brilliant strategy at the time. Humans appeared to be weak creatures who cared too much about their wounded. Destroying their medical capabilities would demoralize their forces and make them easier to defeat. Now it seemed the decision had brought something terrible down upon them. On Earth, Admiral Peter Hayes stood before the assembled representatives of 50 human colonies. The Great Hall was filled with people who had come to hear about humanity's response to the attacks on medical personnel. The mood was somber but determined. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Hayes began, 3 weeks ago, the Zephyrian Empire made a decision that changed everything. They chose to target our medical facilities. They murdered doctors and nurses. They executed wounded soldiers who could not defend themselves. The hall was silent. Everyone had seen the reports from the destroyed medical stations. The images of murdered doctors and burning hospitals had shocked the entire human population. Today, I am here to report that justice has been served. The holographic display activated, showing a star map of Zephyrian territory. Red dots marked the locations where their military installations had been destroyed. 37 bases gone. The entire Third Fleet eliminated. Thousands of enemy soldiers dead. The attacks on our medical personnel have been avenged. The Zephyrian military. Forces responsible for these war crimes have been eliminated with extreme precision. Not a single human life was lost in these operations. Dr. Amanda Clark sat in the front row, watching the presentation. She was one of the few survivors of the original attacks on medical facilities. Her medical station had been destroyed. Her colleagues murdered. But she had lived to see justice served. She thought about the young soldiers who had died because they could not reach medical help. She remembered the Zephyrian officer who had looked her in the eye and explained that killing doctors was simply good strategy. Now that officer and all his superiors were dead. The operation was carried out by a special unit known as the Reapers. Admiral Hayes continued. These operatives volunteered to sacrifice their normal lives in order to protect humanity from enemies who refused to follow the laws of war. The audience murmured at this revelation. Most humans had never heard of the Reaper program. The existence of enhanced soldiers was shocking to people who valued human dignity and individual rights. I know this raises difficult questions about what we are willing to do to protect ourselves, Admiral Hayes said. But let me be clear. The Reapers were not sent to conquer territory or destroy innocent civilians. They were sent to eliminate those who had committed war crimes against medical personnel. The display changed to show footage from the destroyed Zephyrian bases. In each case, only military personnel had been killed. Civilian areas were left untouched. Non-combatants were spared. The Reapers had struck with surgical precision, targeting only those responsible for attacking medical facilities. This was not revenge. This was justice. The Zephyrians chose to abandon the rules of war. We showed them what war without rules truly looks like. In the Zephyrian capital city, Emperor Zakthul received a transmission on all frequencies. The message came directly from Admiral Hayes aboard the human flagship USS Constitution. It was broadcast throughout Zephyrian space, ensuring that every alien in the Empire would hear it. To the leadership of the Zephyrian Empire, Hayes said, his voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. You have violated the fundamental laws of civilized warfare by targeting medical personnel. You attacked doctors and nurses who were protected under the Geneva Convention. You executed wounded soldiers who could not fight back. The Emperor watched the human admiral's face on his personal screen. Hayes looked like an ordinary human, but his words carried the weight of absolute conviction. This was not a negotiation or a diplomatic protest. This was a declaration of what humanity would and would not tolerate. You mistook our adherence to the rules of war for weakness. This was an error in judgment that has cost you dearly. The display showed the locations of the destroyed Zephyrian installations. 37 military bases, gone without a trace. The Third Fleet eliminated. Thousands of soldiers dead, all because they had targeted medical workers. Your forces have been eliminated with surgical precision. No human lives were lost in these operations. We took no prisoners because you showed no mercy to our medical personnel. General Mordak watched the transmission with growing horror. The humans had not just defeated their forces, they had destroyed them completely. And they had done it with such skill that the Zephyrian military had never even seen their attackers. Let this serve as a lesson to any who would target those who heal rather than harm. Admiral Hayes continued. Humanity has rules of war for a reason. When you prove you have no honor, we will show you what war without honor truly looks like. The final part of the transmission showed something that made Emperor Zakthul's blood turn cold. It was footage of General Vextar, the officer who had ordered the attacks on human medical facilities. He was sitting in what appeared to be A detention cell, but his eyes were empty, and his forearms shook uncontrollably. Your general, who ordered the execution of our doctors and nurses, experienced exactly what his victims experienced. He watched his own medical staff die in front of him, just as he ordered done to ours. He learned what it means to face death, without hope of medical treatment. The Emperor could see that General Vextar's mind was broken. The proud warrior who had conquered 3-star systems was now a trembling shell of his former self. Whatever the humans had done to him had destroyed his spirit completely. The Reaper operatives who carried out this mission are now returning to their rest. They have completed their task and proven their point. They exist only to provide justice when the normal rules of war have failed. The transmission ended with an image that would haunt the Zephyrian Empire for generations. It showed the Reaper operatives returning to their cryogenic chambers on the secret human facility. 47 enhanced humans, each one capable of destroying entire enemy forces, willingly going back to sleep until they were needed again. On Earth, Commander Jake Morrison watched the transmission from the bridge of the USS Retribution. He had been the first to respond to Dr. Clark's distress call when the medical stations were attacked. Now he understood what humanity had unleashed in response. Dr. Amanda Clark stood beside him, wearing her medical uniform with its red cross symbol. The insignia meant something different now. Every species in the galaxy would know that attacking human medical personnel meant facing the Reapers. Do you think they understand now? She asked quietly. Morrison nodded. I think they understand. Perfectly. They wanted to see what happens when you target our healers. Now they know. The message spread throughout the galaxy faster than any official diplomatic communication. Word of the Reapers and their surgical destruction of the Zephyrian forces reached every known species within weeks. The story grew with each telling, but the core message remained the same. Humanity had rules of war, and they expected others to follow them. Medical personnel were protected. Doctors and nurses were off limits. The wounded deserved treatment regardless of which side they fought for. These were not suggestions. They were absolute laws, and if anyone chose to ignore those laws, they would face the Reapers. The Zephyrian Empire never recovered from the psychological impact of the attacks. Their military forces, once proud and confident, now jumped at shadows. Every unexplained equipment failure, every lost communication, every minor accident was attributed to possible Reaper activity. Emperor Zakthal issued new military